Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. There's a nice verse that I've been reciting for years. It's from Canto 1, Chapter 2, where Vyas, having compiled Srimad Bhagavatam, is being respected by the speaker, Sutta. So I'm going to say, if you don't know the verse, it's okay, but that's where it's from. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narotamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udhirayat. It's an invocation and offering respect to four personalities, including Vyas and the goddess of learning Saraswati, the personality of Godhead Narayan Rishi, and the speaker, Sutta, is honoring all these personalities. So the verse reads, before uttering this very means of conquest, one must first offer respects unto. So that's what we just did, by mantra. I'm going slowly because there's some persons that haven't been with us for this series of verses from the Bhagavatam. So a little background before we chant the verse for this morning. This is from Canto 2, Chapter 23, Devahuti's Lamentation. And what just happened, previous section, is Devahuti, the daughter of Swayambhuva Manu, the first of the 14 Manus, Swayambhuva Manu, brought his daughter, one of his daughters, Devahuti, to marry Kardama Muni. Kardama Muni was a Brahmana. She was from a Kshatriya family, but she heard about Kardama Muni from Narada Muni and thought, this is an appropriate person for me to become the wife of. So she requested that of her father, and her father brought her to introduce her to her prospective husband. And her prospective husband, Kardama Muni, very intense person. For 10,000 years, he was engaged in austerities in the forest, because it was different yoga, so people lived a longer time. And fixing his mind on the personality of Godhead, in addition to other things that he was doing. Dhyan, meditation, is the process for such a yoga. So along with other things, living very simply in 10,000 years, it's a long time. Lord Vishnu came, this is earlier sections of this chapter, standing on the back of Garuda, and Kardama Muni offered his obeisances, shocked, and surprised and very joyful, offered beautiful prayers. And Lord Vishnu responded to his beautiful prayers saying, you please me very much by your dedication and devotion to me. For that reason I have come. And other things he communicated as, I know what your intention and purpose is. His intention and purpose was to fulfill a request of Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma had requested Kardama Muni to assist him after Lord Brahma created the universe, or built the universe. Then Brahma had, the next service was to fill up the universe with living entities. So Prajapatis do that. He requested Kardama Muni to assist him. So Kardama Muni did all this 10,000 year austerity for that one purpose, fulfilling as a service, fulfilling the request of Lord Brahma. So Lord Vishnu said, standing on the back of Garuda, I know that what your purpose is. You wish to have a qualified wife so that you can fulfill this instruction or request of Lord Brahma. Well, here's the good news. In 2 days, Swayambhuva Manu is going to come, bring his daughter. She's a very qualified daughter of Swayambhuva Manu. Just say yes. And so he said yes, on a condition. What's the condition? This is just give you a background on the chronology of events. The condition was, after a son is born, who can then take care of your daughter in the mature stage of his life and her life, then I want to leave this ashram, the Grahastha ashram, and resume my austerities and penances and other things. That was agreeable to the father, was agreeable to the daughter, and they were married right there in the forest. Some time passed, and she's making a request of her husband. So Devahuti is speaking to Kardama Muni, recognizing the super qualification of Kardama Muni. You're this, and you're a perfect person. You're completely under the care of the Lord's spiritual potency. You're not at all in touch with the material potency. And the affairs of marriage have something to do with material affairs. But for you, it's not a material affair. It's entirely a service to Vishnu through the medium of Lord Brahma. And so she's requesting that you're qualified. I want to be in service to you. She had done some service for some time, doesn't say what period of time, and she's making a request for having a son. Now, when Vishnu came, he said, after your desire will be fulfilled, and you'll have 9 daughters and 1 son, and I will be your son. Vishnu said, I will become your son. High goal. Have Vishnu as your son, not bad. He's qualified. And so it was. So there's no children yet. They're reasonably recently married, and she, Devahuti, is speaking to Kardama Muni. That's the context. Nice instructions. So here's the Sanskrit for the verse. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Tatreti krityam upashika tatopadesham. Ye naishame karshito tiram sayatma. Said ye tate krita manobhava darshitaya dinastadisha bhavanam sadrisham vikchakshva. Tatreti krityam upashika tatopadesham. Ye naishame karishato tiryaram sayatma. Siddhyeta te kritamano bhavadarshitaya. Dinastadisha bhavanam sadrisham vichakshva. Tatreti krityam upashikati.
Tatreti krityam upasikshayato-padesam. Dineshame karshito atiriram sayatma. Siddhyeta te kritamano bhavadarshitaya. Dinastadisha bhavanam sadrisham vichakshva.
Premananda.
Tatredi krityam upasikshayato-padesham. Dineshame karshito atiriram sayatma. Siddhyete kritamano bhavadarshitaya. Dinastadisha bhavanam sadrisham vichakshva.
Tatra, in that, ati krityam, what is necessary to be done. Upashiksha, perform. Yatha, according to. Upadesham, instruction in scripture. Yena, by which. Eshaha, this. Me, my. Karshitaha, emaciated. Ati riram shaya, due to intense passion not being satisfied. Atma, body. Siddhyeta, it may be rendered fit. Te, for you. Krita, excited. Manabhava, by emotion. Darshitaya, who am struck. Dinaha, poor. Tat, therefore. Isha, oh, my dear Lord. Bhavanam, house. Sadrisham, suitable. Vichakshva, please think of. Pretty interesting verse. Devahuti continued, my dear Lord, I am struck by excited emotion for you, therefore kindly make whatever arrangements must be made according to scriptures, so that my skinny body, emaciated through unsatiated passion, may be rendered fit for you. Also, my Lord, please think of a suitable house for this purpose. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The Vedic literatures are not only full of spiritual instruction, but they are also instructive in how to prosecute material existence very nicely with the ultimate aim of spiritual perfection. Devahuti asked her husband, therefore, how to prepare herself for sex life according to Vedic instructions. Sex life is especially meant for having good children. The circumstances for creating good children are mentioned in the Kama Shastras, the scripture in which suitable arrangements are prescribed for factually glorious sex life. Everything needed is mentioned in the scriptures. What sort of house and decorations there should be, what sort of dress the wife should have, how she should be decorated with ointments, scents, and other attractive features, etc. With these requisites fulfilled, the husband will be attracted by her beauty, and a favorable mental situation will be created. The mental situation at the time of sex life may then be transferred into the womb of the wife, and good children can come out of that pregnancy. Here is a special reference to Devahuti's bodily features. Because she had become skinny, she feared that her body might have no attraction for Kardama. She wanted to be instructed how to improve her bodily condition in order to attract her husband. Sexual intercourse with the husband is attracted to the wife, in which the husband is attracted to the wife, is sure to produce a male child, but sexual intercourse based on attraction of the wife for the husband may produce a girl. That is mentioned in the Ayurveda. When the passion of a woman is greater, there is a chance of a girl's being born. When the passion of a man is greater, then there is the possibility of a son. Devahuti wanted the passion of her husband to be increased by the arrangement mentioned in the Kama Shastra. She wanted him to instruct her in that way, and she also requested that he arrange for a suitable house, because the hermitage in which Kardama Muni was living was very simple and completely in the mode of goodness, and there was less possibility of passions being aroused in his heart. So pretty graphic. Not the standard verse and purport in the Bhagavatam, but as Prabhupada writes in the purport, Vedic scriptures includes everything. Now this is the Bhagavad Purana, and two references are made into the Ayurveda and Kama Shastras, neither of which are Bhagavad Dharma or Bhagavad Bhakti. On the other hand, things that are of this world, when connected properly to offering some service to the personality of Godhead, there's a place for this and that and the other thing. You know, the spiritual principle is very simple. There's one source of everything. The one source of everything is, as we discussed yesterday evening, that's the absolute truth is, by definition, the absolute truth is that which is the source of everything. Truth in the Vedic sense is it's the foundation and basis of something else, different than the concept of truth as opposed to lies. That's certainly a worldly understanding of truth. A spiritual conception of truth is that which is the basis and support of something. The truth of something is what you can't see, and then the basis and support which you can't see, that's the basis and support of the thing that you can see. The truth behind something that's perceivable or measurable or palpable or worldly. There's a truth behind it. And then the absolute truth is the truth that's behind all truths, or the sarva karana karanam. That's the absolute truth. So Bhagavad Dharma means connecting with the absolute truth by means of engaging that which is of this world in the service of that which is the source of this world. Objects, dravya, there's a nice description in the Bhagavad Gita of different kinds of yajna. The recommendation in human form of life, in contrast to animal form of life, those who are living their life as human beings, cultured, civilized beings, they offer sacrifice to the Supreme. Say it negatively. Those who do not offer sacrifice to the Supreme, they're not living in a human form of, they have a body of a human, but they're not living human life. It's less than human. So it behooves us to be human. And then therefore there's types of sacrifice. This, that, the other, the other, the other. They're mentioned in the Vedas. So one of those types, for example, one of the types of sacrifice is dravya, yajna, where items are rendered sacred because everything's connected with the Supreme, rendered sacred by offering those items in the process of sacrifice, like grains and ghee and sound and things that are of this world. Apparently, they become sacred. And then when that dravya yajna is directed or dedicated or sankalpa, the intention is, may this house be consecrated, for example. Then there's a yajna, the dravya yajna. Then the house becomes Krishna's house. It's already Krishna's house, but I may not recognize that. So there's a yajna for that purpose. There's then yajna for all purposes. Or jnana yajna, sacrifice of knowledge. It's discussed in Bhagavad Gita, and it's true. When knowledge reaches the place of sacrifice to Vishnu, when knowledge reaches the platform of sacrifice to Vishnu, then detachment from matter by jnana yajna becomes possible. It's described in Bhagavad Gita. Brahmarpanam, Brahmahavir, Brahmagnau, Brahmanahutam, etc. The fire, the items offered into the fire, the performer, the performer means the one who's engaging the Brahmana in that yajna, they become spiritualized or benefited or lifted to the Brahman platform by the process of yajna. And it's very simply, it's just reconnecting everything with the source of everything. That's Vedic sacrifice. And therefore, although it's, the graphic side is one thing, the principle is she, Devahuti, she's not just a nice lady. She's the daughter of Swayambhuva Manu, and she's on the platform of spiritual perfection. And her husband is on the platform of spiritual perfection. And because they're on the platform of spiritual perfection, it doesn't mean they become cavalier or casual about what they do. It means the opposite. They're very careful and conscious to follow Vedic principles. Because they're qualified, they're highly qualified, and he is like superlatively qualified. So the items, the verse says she's become emaciated due to unfulfilled passion, and one might understand she's been engaged in austerities with her husband. She knew she's from this aristocratic. The daughter of Manu, like more than the king of kings. He's the emperor of emperors, Manu, and she's his daughter. And so she's used to, we heard in previous verses, she's used to worldly comforts. That's her life. She doesn't know anything but, opulence. And by her choice, she wanted to marry a qualified husband, and the qualified husband wanted to marry a qualified wife, and arrangements were made by divine intervention. So she's engaged in austerities with her husband, and not biting a bullet or resentfully or feeling discomfort. She is happy. That's what she wanted. And as is natural, she also wanted a son. And then the procedures are identified. It's not, cause and effect entirely. It's this can influence that outcome. So in other words, step back, and it's not to say every time in a family when a female child is born or a male child is born, this is the cause or that's the cause. There's tendency in this direction, that direction. Science will tell us otherwise. The chromosomes and all of those things. But what's the cause behind that? And what's the cause behind that? What's the cause behind that? What's the cause behind that? So this is, the Vedic process is recognizing things that are subtle and then applying oneself according to that which is subtle to achieve a desired outcome, even on the visible or physical or material platform. And after all, she knows and he knows the son that's going to be born is an avatar Vishnu. So they're not cavalier, they're not casual. They're being very particular about those circumstances that will make it inviting. He's superlatively qualified. She is also. And the product of that union will be spectacular. And so the preliminaries are observed. So he makes the coming attraction. We heard this already in preview. But to fulfill her desire, she is immersed in Manasarovar. It's a lake created by the river Saraswati, and when she's immersed in the lake, she's made, beautiful, and there's maidens that are decorating her, and so, she comes out with the beautiful Devahuti. The physical beauty is restored, and Kardamuni creates a vimana, a flying city, not just like what Kuvera had, that Ravana beat him up and took his Pushpaka vimana. That was a very interesting craft. And other description. This is a whole city. There's a description coming up. This and that and the other thing and the other thing and the other thing. It's a very opulent city, just out of his mystic power, like voila in French, or bhavati in Sanskrit, just like he just manifested it. And she was quite amazed, and describes even he was quite amazed, but his platform is a platform of service. He's doing all of this, 10,000 years of austerities, just to fulfill a request made of him by Lord Brahma. And now there's a request made of him by his wife. And he's just fulfilling that request. He's just very service-oriented, extremely powerful, gifted personality. Service-minded personality with lots and lots and lots and lots of powers, not flaunting those powers, but using them in service only. Now, how does that apply to us? Because 10,000 years of austerities. We can't live that long, so it's not Satya Yuga. So how does all this apply to us? There are principles involved that apply to us. The service-mindedness principle, the qualifying oneself prior to taking on some important service, qualifying oneself by voluntarily accepting some inconvenience, tapa. It's standard. It has everything to do, like this earlier description of yajna. Yajna means satisfying Vishnu. Human form of life is meant to perform performance of yajna or satisfying Vishnu. So what it looks like may be very different than what it looked like for karma, but the principle is the same. So how are we to perform tapa? Different ways. It doesn't have to be extreme or painful or too much. Something. And then for each of us, whatever that something is that's sustainable, as it yields detachment from matter and further attachment to spirit, then the threshold or the where the marker goes starts to move. That means the necessities diminish, and therefore it's not tapa, it's just life. Voluntary restriction from worldly involvement grows as the spiritual aspect in life grows. So what's the purpose, spiritual aspect of life? To get that spiritual aspect of life, some tapa and some yajna, in principle, whatever that is, that's suitable and sustainable, suitable for us in our living situation, and something that can be sustained. And the yajna, just we'll conclude with this, the yajna for this Satya Yuga, or should we Kali Yuga, is simple. It's something that everyone can do. A child can do, an adult can do, a very elderly person can do, and everybody in between can do. This social status, that type of birth, this wealth, this socio-economic position, psychophysical nature, doesn't matter. Everyone can do for this age. The Nama Yajna or Sankirtan Yajna, anyone can do. Just, for example, just yesterday, many of you know, there was an event till midnight to receive the New Year. And just Sankirtan. So the youth like Sankirtan, so connect what they like with receiving the New Year, and so they were up till midnight doing that. And all around town. I mean, someone just sent me some devotees from Dallas that live there. They came here for this weekend. They're back in Dallas, and they're now at the Dallas temple, engaged in kirtan. They call it, in Dallas, they call it Kirtan 50. And what it means is 50 hours of kirtan stretched over 4.5 days. So it's a little more than 10 hours a day. Kirtan 10 hours a day, that's a lot of kirtan. Then the next day, and then the next day, and then the next day, to receive the New Year. That's when they have it. Ending last night. And their guest kirtanier was Badahari Prabhu. Some of you may not know Badahari, but those of you that know can go, wow, wish I was there. So it's a yajna for this age. Engaging oneself in yajna, what's the purpose behind it? Satisfying Vishnu. And when Vishnu is satisfied, we become satisfied. On the spiritual plane, we become satisfied. And whatever austerity it may involve, it's quite okay, because the spiritual happiness sustains above and beyond whatever may be inconvenient That's if in fact one can connect with the yagya, or the name in our case. So that's the Hare Krishna movement. That's human life. So I'm responding to this created question: how does all this pertain to us? It's like this is a different yuga when so many different things. They're off in the forest. He has a little cottage. And he's producing an aerial mansion, a flying city with opulence like anything. There's a purpose behind it. So how does it have a connection to us? It's a principle. For a different age, a different circumstance. The principle is the same. He did the process for that age, the process for Satya Yuga, Jayate, 10,000 years. Underneath a tree, somewhere off in a secluded forest, near a river where he could take some water, and who knows what he ate for 10,000 years, doing meditation. But in any case, specific for that age, that was the principle, and how it applies to us is the same applies to us in principle. We accept some inconvenience, tapa, so that the senses, rather than indulging as animals indulge their senses unrestrictedly, according to species, or fish, or insects, or whatever, birds, we direct our senses towards satisfying the senses of Hari. That's in the mood of devotion, service to Hari. So we do that. That's devotional life. And while doing that, directing the senses in that way, we engage in the yagya for the sage. Included in the yagya, included in the Sankirtan yagya, there may be jnana yagya and dravya yagya and other forms of making sacrifice. But how it applies to us is it's human life. It's elevation of consciousness, that what the human life is meant for. Supposing we don't do that, there's some persons that don't do that. What is there a consequence of not doing that? Well, the consequence is accumulation of further karma and bondage in good, bad, and mixed karma. Good, bad, and mixed karma. And mixed karma, or karma, means another body and continuing the process of birth and death without any plan other than trying to enjoy circumstances from the past good karma and then suffering from the past sinful activity. The process of yagya, it incinerates, it burns to ashes past sinful activities. The reactions to past sinful activities are burned. It's a verse from Bhagavad Gita. That's the human process of sacrifice. We're meant to not generate further karma, but to achieve the mission of life. Termination of the cycle of birth and death, and coming to the position of spiritual perfection, being with Krishna in spiritual perfection. That's the purpose of human life. The principle is clear. The process is quite simple. And as Prabhupada would say, so what is the problem? Let's see if there's some discussion. Krishna, Krishna.
I'm very inspired by Kardamuni's tapa situation, flipping to being in this aerial mansion, and then very easily flips back to a have-not situation where he takes some austerity. At this point in the Bhagavatam, it seems like he's ramping up his material situation in the sense of opulence. And there doesn't seem to be any concern from his side or anxiety, as we see in the case of Priyavrata, that he did not want any kind of opulence because he was anxious about how it could affect his consciousness. Yeah, we see no such concern from Cardinal Muni's side. So I was wondering if you could expand on this point about how does that apply to us? How do we, as opulence rises, many of us here are, immigrants coming into the United States. Opulence is growing generally, and how to manage that from an emotional standpoint.
The principle is simple, the application of the principle is tricky. The principle is immigrants or people coming, wherever they're migrating from, ask Donald Trump where people are coming from, and he's got a big issue about where they come from and what they do when they get here. But people come to this country because of its wealth, and they want a piece of the pie. They want some wealth. And it's okay. And it's not shame on the people that come here for that reason. But when they come here for that reason, then it entangles. Wealth is a network, because with wealth comes the facility for objects of the senses that can be acquired by wealth. And it may not be necessarily more, it can be more, but an upgrade in the quality of items that I can buy with greater wealth. And, and similarly for my family members, etc., etc., etc. The protection is made available in two things: piety on one level and bhakti on a higher level. Piety says, in Vedic culture, piety says, those that are, just this morning I was listening to Prabhupada describe the system of varnashram that Krishna created, and he was making the point very clear. 3 of the 4 ashrams, they're living on the earnings of the 4th of the 4 ashrams, the grahastha ashram. And so the grahasthas earning money have an obligation according to culture, Vedic culture. The 50%, 25%, 25% principle. It's like the structure is very simple. So the principle of acting according to duty for those that come to this country, they have to know what duty is and how to perform that duty. But if wealth comes into one's hand, the formula for the grahasthas is 50% is for charity, to maintain the other 75% of the population. Brahmacharis, vanaprasthas, and sannyasis they're not gainfully employed. The grahasthas are to be gainfully employed, and so with that they have some earnings. And then it's a nice principle. Maybe not easy with taxes and so many other things that people have to deal with, but 50%. I mean, there was taxation in Vedic times as well, but anyway, leaving the taxation issue. Charity. and at least in principle. Now, charity can be, minuscule, or charity can be substantial. So then, what's substantial look like? That formula is there. I know some people that live by that 50% principle. And what happens in their life is, because they're doing so for the right purpose, something happens. Now, besides the bank balance goes down, the bank balance goes up because Krishna is pleased. When you please Krishna, then prosperity comes. Then what to do when further prosperity comes? You stick by principle. The protection, back to your question, the protection comes by following Vedic principles. Not everybody that comes to this country becomes wealthy, but some people that come to this country become wealthy. Now, what to do when that wealth comes, depending upon one's background and etc., education and etc. You see, stick by principle. And so the other 50% for maintenance of family, that's 25% for maintenance, and another 25% is emergency. The Prabhupada said it like 4 times this morning. Bank for emergency, in case. No, there's not always that emergency will happen, but if emergency does happen, there's a place to go from one's earnings. And supposing there isn't an emergency, then he didn't describe it, but commonly is passed on to the next generation. Or it can be converted into yet further donation, further charity. But it goes over there, and then this goes over here, and 50%, so that's on the material side. And then the spiritual side is very simple. 100% it belongs to Krishna, and 100%, how do I divide the 100%? Then it depends on one's service and one's disposition, and using that same formula can be a principle that's applied to those who are devotees or practicing devotees or cultivating devotion. It's a nice standard to look towards and work towards, and then to engage in charity. To whom? Ultimately charity to Vishnu. And Vishnu doesn't need anything, but we can give charity to Vishnu. Vishnu means then those who are in Vishnu's service, or the brahmanas who are engaged in activities, or the other ashrams and the other varnas. So, in Krishna's service. And that's just a principle that, as one who's cultivating bhakti, it'll enhance my bhakti. It won't block my bhakti, because becoming entangled in wealth is a problem, is a bhakti problem. Attachment to asat is an impediment. Those are some thoughts. And then we always have those that are superior to us, and we go to those who are superior to us and seek guidance, so we can know how to not get too entangled. It's easy to get entangled. It's not easy to get unentangled. Anything else?
Guru Maharaj, what we hear of Kardama Muni up to the point of his leaving Grahastha is so exemplary. I'm curious if there's any information about the rest of his journey of perfection after he left Grahastha.
There may be, I'm not aware. It's kind of like after he gets up and says Haribol, we don't hear what happens after that. Now, it may be in some other place or maybe even within the Bhagavatam that I'm just not aware of, but I'm not aware of any further description. Anything else? Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.